when the news first broke that the Dallas Mavericks were considering trading Anthony Davis, and that could become something they do at some point this season, I kind of visited the trade possibility from a Raptors perspective, but didn't take it too seriously. That is until we had some reports that came out that the Toronto Raptors were specifically named as a potential suitor for the Dallas Mavericks center by Shams Charania of ESPN. So evidently the Raptors are going to throw their hat in the pile here, see if they can come away with Anthony Davis in a trade. So let's have a look at what the trade would look like and if, based on that trade, the Raptors should actually try and pursue this. And a lot of times when a star player becomes available, pretty much every time, I guess, the Raptors are named as a suitor because they're always aggressive with trades. They're always aggressive with sending offers. And right now, the Raptors have a lot of assets they can give. They have some slightly tradable, bigger contracts. They have all of their own first-round draft capital. They have the ability to make a splash if they want to do so. And for Dallas, obviously, this is a disaster. This is less than a year after Anthony Davis was the player they traded for with Luka Doncic, which, as we know, will probably go down as the worst trade in NBA history. But it's a disaster right now for the Dallas Mavericks. And they're trying to clean house a little bit. And one of the players they could do that with, absolutely, is Anthony Davis. Now, the Raptors had a 9-game win streak. Now they've lost 6 of 7. They are starting to spiral a little bit. But they're still 5th in the East. They can still make a run in the playoffs this year if they are to get better. And Dallas, like I said, they're trying to sell off a little bit. They're 9-16, and they may feel that it is best to proceed this season without Anthony Davis and recouping some assets in that way. I will say, sometimes the Raptors aren't really interested in these sorts of trades. They just, again, throw themselves in the mix. But let's still go through what this trade would actually have to look like. So for me, for starters, you're building around Scottie Barnes. That automatically you cannot put Scottie Barnes in a trade. And I'm definitely not trading Scottie Barnes for Anthony Davis. Like, even for Giannis, like, maybe you could persuade me, but I really don't want to do that. But for Anthony Davis, there's no way. Brandon Ingram, despite how bad the Raps have been lately, has been excellent lately. So I would like to pair talent or get talent around Barnes and Ingram and have those guys to build with. So those are the guys I'm not throwing into this trade because to me, that doesn't make sense. Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes are staying. So how do we get to that $54 million? I don't really see a point of making this trade unless Jakob Poeltl's going in the other direction. It doesn't really make sense for me to trade Barrett and quickly and then have Anthony Davis playing with Jakob Poeltl. I just think that's an awful fit. I know Anthony Davis has had success with like maybe some centers who can protect the rim and lets him play the 4, but I don't know. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Again, it's just Barnes, Ingram, Davis, and Poeltl doesn't sound like a very great fit. I mean, it sounds even worse than the current fit the Raptors have. I don't want to get rid of the floor spacing player they have in quickly. My ideal version of this trade is to get off RJ Barrett and move him in the trade. And now we've seen lately how bad the Raptors offense has been without RJ Barrett. But if you're making this trade, you're getting Anthony Davis, who is going to help the offense a lot. I value Emmanuel Quickley's pick and roll play with Davis and the floor spacing primarily enough to say I'd rather move RJ Barrett in this trade. I don't think this works. We'll have to add on one more player. Let's see what that is. So we need to trim the finances by $6.9 million. So we can do that with probably, I mean, it could be Abaji, but this is kind of tougher to get there. Abaji doesn't quite do it. We would need to remove $2 million from incoming to the Dallas Mavericks, so we could maybe add like a cheaper player. Maybe like could be Dante Exum. Hey, we could use some guard depth. And does this get us over the line? this does get us over the line. The only thing stopping this is the restriction on Pirtle, because he's not trade eligible until January 7th, and Dante Exum is not trade eligible until December 15th. So this is like something along the lines of what the trade would have to look like for me as the base. So now we have to think about picks. The Raptors really are not giving up much or anything of value as far as like the players in this trade are concerned. So, we'll have to look at it from a picks perspective, obviously, to sweeten this deal further. 2026 first round kind of has to go, and it's got to be at least 2. And even here, I'm still thinking like we're probably not even high enough, even with 2 first round picks to do this. But like for Anthony Davis, this is what I'd more so be comfortable with. Dallas probably say no, but that's what I'd be comfortable with if anything. Now, if we're going to change this one around, I think Pirtle has to be in the deal. If we go in a different direction and say, let's keep RJ Barrett, let's value the downhill scoring, let's play Anthony Davis as a center and just keep Barrett, Barnes, and Ingram on the wings, and we can move Emmanuel quickly instead. It becomes a little bit easier because Emmanuel quickly can get this trade done without having to add any additional players. It's quickly and Pirtle going in this direction. And the Dallas Mavericks are really lacking point guards right now, so you could value getting a point guard back in. But I still think in this scenario, the Raptors have no choice but to give up the picks, which they're already listed here. And again, I'm still a little bit reluctant to go with 3 first-round picks to get it done. And even 3, I don't know how much they're going to value Anthony Davis. It doesn't feel like this is that tremendous of an offer that is going to force Dallas's hand into making this trade. So if this is the trade, 2 picks plus Pirtle plus either Quickly or Barrett as the base, I could be convinced to make this trade. Anthony Davis is a superstar caliber player when he's out there healthy and when he's playing. You know, typically it's a guy that's averaging 24, 25 points per game, operating at a defensive player of the year level on that end of the floor, big rebound machine, and makes this team better. But my issue is not the injury stuff, honestly. You know, because a lot of people will say, look at him. He's only played 51 games last year, 76 the year before, 56 for that, then 40, 36. This is a player who's very injury prone. Yes, he deals with injuries, but the players going the other way in this trade, you could say maybe a little bit similar. Pirtle, up until his return to the Raptors, had never struggled with playtime, but now he's kind of he's starting to feel injury effects a bit more. He's clearly not healthy this season, so we'll see how many games he plays this year. But Pirtle only played 57 games last year. He only played 50 the year before that. Part of that is tanking and he's resting games. I get that. But it's not like Pirtle is playing a whole lot more games than Anthony Davis. And if we pull up RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, we'll see not quite to the same degree, but similar. Like Barrett only played 58 games last year. And he only played 58 games the year before. And if we move Quickly, he's had quite a few injuries in his time with the Raptors. Quickly played only 33 games last year, but he did play 68 games the year before. So it's not like Anthony Davis is playing way less games than some of the other guys that are outgoing for the Raptors here. And sure, I trust Barrett and Quickly to be more healthy than Anthony Davis, but I think as much as it's fun to poke fun at street clothes Anthony Davis, Anthony Day to Davis, I don't think we're seeing a significant decrease in games played by making this trade in order to go to him. I'm not as concerned about that. What I am more concerned about is the fact that he's making more than $50 million. And if you're getting Anthony Davis, this is where I have the issue. You're making a real commitment to Barnes, Ingram, and Davis being the core for the team. I don't love that fit. Like, I think our starters have to become, like, let's say it's my ideal trade and it's Barrett and Pirtle going out. Like, I kind of think, like, Mamu starting at the 5 is interesting because he's a center who can space the floor. It lets Anthony Davis play as, like, the power forward. which is what he wants to do. You get 2 bigs on the floor. It's a big team. I think that's beneficial. And then you can start Emmanuel quickly, or you could even go the other direction. Like if you trade Emmanuel quickly, I think that becomes tougher because you have to start Shed, and then you go Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, and Davis. But I don't look at either of those teams and say that like that's a contender. That's a real contender. And I think if you're giving away this degree of assets, you need to feel like you're a contender on the other side of it. And I don't feel like with Anthony Davis, the Raptors are. So for me, I don't really see a trade here that I'd be overly thrilled with. I guess it just depends how much the Dallas Mavericks are willing to kind of shed his value to make this trade happen. And even if they do that, I feel like other teams will have superior offers and better fits for Davis. So I think it's an interesting one to kind of think about and maybe even dream about a little bit, but I don't think this is something that really could happen or even maybe should happen for this Raptors team. But I'd love to hear what you think about that.